Hello, welcome to the Mayor's Brief. This is Lige Daughtridge, City Councilman, Ward 5, and I'm here with Tom Harris, City Councilman-Elect for Ward 6, and we're going to go over the City Council meeting that was held last night on June the 27th at 4 p.m. And Tom, glad to be here with you, and the next meeting you will be sworn in as a new official City Council member, and WB will retire, and he's done a great job for all these years, and you're coming in behind and you got big shoes to follow.
I definitely have big shoes to follow. Thanks for allowing me to be here with you today. It definitely was an interesting council meeting last night. More importantly, I do look forward to joining the council on July the 11th.
Right.
I've had this in my mind for a number of years now, and it's just about time to cross the finish line and to become an official council member to join you and others on the council.
Yeah, well, the mayor couldn't be here, and then typically T.J. Walker and I will sit in his stead, and Councilman Walker couldn't make it. So I'm glad you were able to come in, and let's talk over what went on in the meeting last night. I know you were out in the crowd, so basically what we're going to do is maybe ask some questions, what you may have done, and maybe some of your comments that you weren't able to share. But let's go ahead and dive into the agenda. We always go through the public comment, and I don't think anything was there were a couple of concerns that went on within the neighborhood, and of course the garbage pickup, and then that was about the most that really went on. Do you recall anything that went on that struck you?
No, not during the public comment period, other than what you said in your remarks about the budget.
Right.
It's a great concern that we continue to have refuge problems.
Right.
Yard waste pickup and heavy stuff that's not being picked up timely. Fortunately, the last little bit, our regular waste and recycle have been picked up, but that still is not consistent from what I see. But we got some problems, and I think it's how some of the budget has been administered over the past few years. Right.
No, and we'll talk more about that when we get there. But the first part of the consent agenda was item number 6, and that was that passed unanimously. And that was talking about really the Tar River Transit and things that go with that, and community development for the considerations coming up. And then you had some project ordinances for the CARES Act of getting some DOT money from North Carolina for $400,000 and Battle Park renovation for $260,000. So kind of mundane stuff. And the city health insurance, because we're self-funded, and we've actually gone over, and we needed to supplement what we were doing for the past year by $4.7 million. And so we had to add funds to our stop loss so we could reimburse that. Routine, but that is a concern about the self-fund. We just got to make sure we got enough funds in there.
You're so right. I sat in the budget workshops, and the matter of health insurance, this impacts everybody, City of Rocky Mount, but your company, private business, Medicare, skyrocketing health costs. And what can we do to encourage people to engage in a more effective lifestyle of eating good and exercising and doing the proper things? But healthcare is going to continue to be a big cost in the future, and hopefully we can kind of get a handle on what those future costs will be as we work on some budgets for next year.
Now, I agree that the city does do a good job with some health incentives for the staff and the family members to lead a healthy lifestyle. And so I've been impressed with what the city has done with that. But moving on to item number 7, which was the big item last night,
right.
Was talking about the budget. And we went through our budget is total budget with the enterprise fund and general funds about $239 million in change, I will say. We kept the tax rate at 0.685 cents per $100 in tax value. The solid waste transfer station tipping fee increased by 4.6%. which is dictated by the fee in Bertie County at the landfill, and then the water and sewer retail rates as well as the water and sewer wholesale rates increased by 8.8%, which essentially is marching along with what inflation is, and then we also took the pay and classification study, or not the study. The study hasn't been complete, but the staff had a pay increase. So I'll just go ahead and spill the beans. I voted against the budget. I was the sole person that voted against the budget out of the seven current city council members. And the reason I voted against the budget is, we're taking a lot of funds. We've increased by 83% since 2017. Some of the money that we take in fees from the utility fund. We also are adding a lot of different things within our budget, and I think instead of adding, we need to take away, which also includes not adding to the grants that we do, because part of the reason, Tom, you mentioned earlier, we're not taking care of the essential services that we have as a city of Rocky Mount. Part of the problem is the staffing, which everyone throughout the entire nation, private and public, is going through issues with staffing. So that's not unique to Rocky Mount. But one thing that is unique to Rocky Mount is we haven't been purchasing the garbage trucks and the trash trucks and the yard waste trucks like we should. There's been 3 years that we have not purchased any trucks. And then you add COVID on top of that, and you're already in a backlog because everybody else is ordering trucks as well. So I have a deep concern that we're not taking care of the basics that we're supposed to take care of. I'm all for spending money. I'm all for the grants if we can afford them. And I'm also all for impacting as many people as we can, since it's tax dollars.
Right.
So there are just a few of the reasons I voted not in favor of the budget. And it was the second year that I've done that, because we need to get our spending under control. And in addition, we are not taking care of our buildings like we should. And I know when you get on, you'll learn more, and a lot now, but you'll learn more about what we are and aren't doing, and gain your own opinion. But anything you want to add to that, or how do you feel about the budget?
Well, what I would like to see, and maybe a change in the way the budgeting process is done. Obviously, we're going to be having a major task ahead of us, and that is to select the best manager for the city of Rocky Mount. And not only the best manager, but how he or she delegates authority. Is this person more laid back in terms of giving authority to department heads? Or they are authoritarian in nature, that everything has got to run straight through one channel? But what I would like to see the process being looked at next March, whenever the work is started for the 23-24 budget. And the city gets with the department heads to start putting together what each department desires in the next year's budget, next year being 23-24. I would like for the council to have the opportunity, maybe a 20-minute session with each department head, to hear directly from them about what they think their needs are in the particular year. Because some of these decisions about not buying garbage trucks or refuse trucks, that could have been made and the council had no input in how the decisions are made. We need to be more open in how we manage the city's operation. And that is one thing that I'm going to do when I'm sitting on the council, is to ask questions. I'm going to be learning.
Right.
And the only way to learn is for me to do as much study and research as possible. But at the end time is to ask questions. And I want to ask questions not just for my benefit, but I'm going to ask questions so the public will have information. You've done a good job over the years in asking questions, but a lot of times those questions don't get answered.
Well,
and if I ask the question and I don't get an answer in 30 days or so, I'm going to ask it again, and I'm going to ask again. But the budget, there's a lot in the budget. There truly is a lot in the budget. And the breakdown of what some of these main categories are, we just don't know.
Right.
You know?
Well, I will say the budget this year, we had quite a few meetings, and when a question was asked, and I'm known to ask my questions.
Sure.
Interim City Manager Peter Varney was very prompt, and so was Ken Hunter, our budget director. I forget his exact title, but they were pretty prompt in giving a response this year, which I was appreciative of, and I know the rest of the city council was. Mm-hmm. And so, but you know, that's where some of the concerns came up with a lot of the spending that we were doing, because when we don't spend on our vehicles or on our buildings, and we spend on other things, money spent, it's gone. We don't get it back. We do not get it back. So, I greatly appreciate your view on asking the questions and requesting to get some feedback. So I look forward to your questions. But moving on to number 8, this was a budget amendment, and the reason number 8 was on here is because we have Councilman Reuben Blackwell and Councilman Andre Knight who were involved in the OIC, and this was a grant for the Youth Connect internship program, appropriating funds to the general fund for $50,000, and it was in there last year, and as far as I know, the previous years. This was part of the budget, and so I voted against this grant just for the sheer fact is because it was part of the budget. And I also voted against the budget, which also included other nonprofits in there. And I think there was some criticism about the vote because 3 of us, with the recusal of Blackwell and Knight, only 5 of us could vote, and it was a 3-2 vote and voted it down. Councilman Bullock and Miller and myself voted against it, and Councilman Joyner and Walker voted for it. So the funding did not pass. And for me, I can't speak for the others, for me it all had to do with the budget. And this was the first year that it was itemized out due to Senate Bill 473, which forced it to come out of be itemized.
Right.
And so that's why I voted, and I support a lot of the nonprofits that even within the budget that I voted against. So it's not that I voted against the nonprofits specifically or OIC specifically. I was not in favor of the budget the way it was presented. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that or not.
Well, I have spoken before the council on several occasions the last year or two about my concerns about grants and programs and the lack of information and follow-up. And what I think should have been done with this particular case is the city should have presented to the council the effectiveness of these programs. In this particular case, how was the money used last year? How many people were what did they do, et cetera? Be more open about how money is being spent.
So similar to maybe the way United Way goes through their process every year that I used to be involved in the Boys and Girls Club, and we would have to go in front of the United Way. I know yearly, and I think the executive director had to go more often than that, but we would receive funds from United Way, and then we would have to go present and say, here's what the funds prove what we used them for, and then we also had to provide them with other information too, and it was just a check and balance because we were entrusted with funds that people donated to the United Way. I think what you're saying, and I agree with in a similar fashion, and frankly, I think by North Carolina statute that we are required to receive that information on those nonprofits that we give to, including their 990, and then what they spent the money for, and then also who's on the board. I don't believe we're getting that information. I did request, I think, the Thursday before the meeting, that information if we had it, and I have not received it yet. I think they're working on it, but that was, we didn't have it in time for the budget. So that's another thing that it's just accountability, because we're fiduciaries of the city's tax dollars.
We certainly are. Being a 45-year banker before my retirement, I know the importance of how you look at the dollars being spent or being loaned or being given, because it's not my dollars or your dollars, it's the taxpayers' dollars. Of course, in banking, it was the depositors' dollars.
Right.
But I'd just like to see more reporting periodically on the housing grants that's been given out over the last couple of years. I've spoken before the council. I am in support of some of these programs. But without knowledge of how these projects were handled, the timeline, where all the money spent, was some of the projects not completed. If the city would work and provide the council periodically a status reports on all of these housing and special grants, then we're informing the public as well. And I think the public would get a better understanding of some of the decisions the council makes.
Right. Well, and I agree with you, and it's not only for the council, it's really for the public, transparency.
That's exactly right.
You know, I'm a firm believer in transparency. So let's move on to the other items on the agenda. The ninth item was about some demolition of some homes on Pine Street and Thomas Street. And I don't know if you want to weigh on that, but that was unanimously approved because that was deferred from the last city council meeting. You have any thoughts on that?
I'm glad to see we're beginning the process of doing some foreclosures, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of properties that need to be looked at, but I'm an advocate of trying to develop by blocks housing, not one house here and one house there and one over here. We need to do a block and show the city how we can, or show the city citizens how we can do a project that would benefit a lot of people.
Well, that's refreshing to my ears, because I concur with you. I agree 100%. The 11th item and 12th all had to do with adopting administrative policies and approval of documentation for some of the grants that we give out. The assistant policy for urgent repair program, as well as procurement and disbursement policy of the urgent repair program. And so those two passed unanimously, and then we went into the housing rehab program policy, workforce housing repair program policy, and the housing rehab matching rebate program policy, and they were approved as well. Any thoughts on those?
No, we just need to really make sure that we're given additional $500,000 a year over 3 years, if I recall, part of the American Rescue money for further housing repair and assistance. And we just need to make sure that money is spent like it's supposed to spend. And I know we got people in the community development office, but we really just need to make sure that the dollars are spent very wisely, and we can show the city, again, results of some of these projects.
Right. Now, I agree. And then when you were at the retreat that was held at the event center that Mayor Pro Tem Walker had, and Ms. McGee presented on that, and I think she has a good process, and it gave me some comfort. I don't know about you, but I felt more comfortable because I was informed of the process.
And Councilman Blackwell had a great story about this one particular lady who used some of her money and some of the city's money. You know, that would be great if we can have a success story about that. Right.
So I agree. And then item number 13 was about some property donated to the city. It was right there on Gay Street, kind of behind the Sunset Park. It was sandwiched in between two properties we already had. So, and it was right next to the water treatment plant right there on Sunset. And so that approved unanimously, and you know, it just made sense to take it in. So we're not anxious to take too much property in because it takes it off the tax rolls, but it just made sense in there because it was flood property.
That's correct. That's correct.
So you want to add anything?
No.
And then there was a consideration of neighborhood restoration and preservation incentive grant agreement for the Buck Leonard Association for Sport and Human Enrichment for $20,000, and that was to upfit the house that Buck Leonard was. That he was. I think it was the house he was born in. And using that more as a museum type piece, because you're bringing in some folks to come in to learn some history, and he certainly a big part of the history of Rocky Mount and a big part of the history of baseball, and just
very big
and the first on a lot of things. So we want to celebrate that and support it. So that passed unanimously. Anything to add to that?
I'm just glad that we were able to help the association to make the improvement, so that structure can be used as an example of what the life of Buck Leonard was.
That's right.
And the meaning of what he did in baseball.
Right, and in life.
That's
so, right. And then we went on for the consideration for bid replacement of a home located at 623 Branch Street, and that was for $206,000 for a home that we're going to build for an individual. And again, that was the only other controversy on that. There was some dissent on, and I voted against that along with Councilwoman Miller. And my concern there is the square footage price. The square footage price was $242 a square foot. If you look at the square footage price in Rocky Mount or Edgecombe County for the median, it's $121 a square foot. So we're almost building a house for someone, double the median price. And then the other example I looked up on the St. Louis Fed, they have the Fred report, and it shows the median in square footage for Wake County is like $235 less a square foot, which is less than what we're going to build this house here. And that concerns me because we've got to be stewards again of the taxpayers' dollars. And I do have an issue with building a home for an individual, but for the square footage price that we're going, it's just it was just way too much. It just didn't sit well with me, and I don't think we were being stewards of the taxpayer money. I know there were some issues there, and for the person, but we could have done something else and saved the taxpayer some money and still met our obligation to the person. And
I realize there's an agreement that the city had made years ago. But if I was on the council, I would have asked a couple of questions. One, the two bids that came in were from contractors, I believe, located in Wake County.
Right.
Were any contractors in Nash and Edgecombe County made aware of this? And I hope so. But why isn't a local contractor being involved with this project? I do not understand why we are going with a Wake County Raleigh construction company who has additional costs over and above because they got to come back and forth to make sure the job is done. I just have great concerns about why we had to find somebody in Raleigh. That should have been presented to the council, some background information on why this particular contractor was finally settled. Perhaps again, I'm on the outside. And the second question I would ask, there are a lot of nice modular homes being constructed. I don't know if a modular home could be built on this particular lot. Don't know any requirements or zoning or whatever. But to me, there could have been a way to put a residence on this lot cheaper than $206,000.
Right. I don't disagree. And no, I'm not aware, or I don't remember anything mentioned about going out to local contractors. It was said it was put out for bid, and these were the only contractors we had to bid on it with. I think it was only two. And, we can always do things differently, and hopefully moving forward we will do things a little differently. And hopefully we won't be put back in this situation again. And so, anyway, that was done. And then the last item was appointments, and we didn't have any appointments, but I think our next Councilman our Mayor Pro Tem Walker is going to have on the Committee of the Whole, where we have the opportunity to put some folks up on various boards, and that's extremely important to the city of Rocky Mount for people to be involved, and we need that expertise that people serve on the boards, and it's extremely important. By the way, have you ever served on a city board?
Yeah, I was on the Board of Adjustment for a number of years.
Okay. So that's how you kind of learned about the city.
Well, that's Ann Wall kind of was here, and she kind of got me involved and got me trained, so to speak. She spent several hours preparing for what a Board of Adjustment member does,
right?
Which was very good, and that started, giving me an idea of city operations, because you're interfacing with the city planning department with various Board of Adjustment zoning requests.
So how long did you serve on those?
I think I served probably 8 years or more, and it got to the point that I got off because I had running for city council in my mind for quite some time.
Well, I was
before I even let it be known publicly, and I wanted to step away from that.
Yeah.
And regarding United Way, I want to openly say I intentionally have not served on any nonprofit organization boards, other than I am on the board of the Rocky Mount Area United Way.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I appreciate that. I got started on the planning board, and that's how I got exposed a little bit to the city, in addition to with the Chamber of Commerce. But we got to wrap this up because we're running out of time.
Okay.
But I think the next time you have an opportunity to be here, you'll actually be